I need to share something that happened 3 nights ago, and I'm still shaken by it. I asked Jesus a question I've been carrying in my heart for months, and his answer completely changed what I thought I knew about the end times. What he showed me wasn't what I expected, and the warning he gave still echoes in my mind. You see, everyone talks about the final days, about prophecy, about when Jesus will return. But what he revealed isn't about dates, signs, or timelines. It's about something far more urgent, something happening right now in the hearts of believers. Honestly, it frightens me more than any apocalyptic vision ever could. Let me explain how this began. We had just finished filming season 5 of The Chosen, and season 6 was already in production. Playing Jesus for all these years has changed me in ways I never anticipated. Spending so much time studying his words, his heart, his character makes it impossible to separate who you are from what you've learned. But recently I've been carrying a heavy burden. Everywhere I look, I see division within the church. Christians are attacking other Christians over politics, theology, and issues that seem secondary to the gospel. I've been watching believers choose sides instead of choosing love, and it has broken my heart in ways I can't even put into words. 3 months ago, I started having a recurring dream, not about filming, not about the show, but about standing in a vast field where I could see 2 groups of people in the distance. Both held crosses and sang worship songs, but they faced away from each other, completely ignoring the other group's existence. In the dream, I would try to walk between them, attempting to bring them together. But every time I got close to one side, the other side would drift further away. I would wake up with a crushing weight on my chest, a sense that something was deeply wrong with the body of Christ. And I had no idea how to fix it. The dreams became more frequent, vivid, and disturbing. Faces appeared in the crowds, people I knew, pastors I respected, friends from church. They were so focused on being right, on proving their point, that they couldn't see they were moving away from the very love Jesus commands us to have for one another. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just stress from filming, just my imagination running wild. But the burden kept growing heavier. I found myself praying constantly, Jesus, what's happening to your church? Why does it feel like we're falling apart from the inside? What are you calling me to do about this? 2 weeks ago, during a particularly emotional scene for season 6, I had to portray Jesus weeping over Jerusalem. As I prepared for that scene, studying his heart for his people, I felt an overwhelming urge to ask him directly about what I was seeing in the modern church. Over the years, playing Jesus has given me a unique connection to prayer, not because I'm special, but because I've spent so much time meditating on his words, his heart, and his love for people. I've developed an intimacy with him that I never experienced before, and I knew he would answer if I asked. That night, after everyone had left the set, I stayed in the prayer garden we use for filming. It was quiet, peaceful, and I felt free to be completely honest with God about what was weighing on my heart. I knelt down and poured out everything I had been carrying, my fears, my questions, my heartbreak. I prayed, Jesus, I need to know what you want me to tell your people. I see the church divided. I see believers choosing politics over love, choosing being right over being kind. I see your followers attacking each other while the world watches and turns away from Christianity. What do you want me to do? Then I asked the question that changed everything. Jesus, when you return, what will you find? What concerns you most about your church in these final days? I wasn't asking about tribulation timelines or the rapture. I was asking about the condition of our hearts, whether we'd be ready for his return in the ways that truly matter. What happened next wasn't a dream or vision in the usual sense. It was more like a conversation with a dearest friend, but with a weight and authority I knew could only come from Jesus. His presence was so strong that it took my breath away, not from fear but from overwhelming love. The first words he spoke were, Jonathan, thank you for asking the right question. Most people want to know when I'm coming back. You want to know if my people will be ready. His voice was gentle, but tinged with sorrow, and my heart broke immediately because I sensed the difficulty of what he was about to reveal. He said, look around you. What do you see? I looked, and the garden had transformed. It was no longer a set. It felt like heaven yet looked like earth. Creation was perfect, colors vibrant, air pure, peace tangible. This is what I am preparing for, my people, he said. This is the kingdom I am bringing. But many who claim to follow me are not preparing their hearts for this kind of love, this unity, this peace. They are preparing for war instead of preparing for love. Jesus began walking and I followed him through this breathtaking place. As we walked, he shared what he was seeing in his church today. Every word pierced my heart because I recognized the truth of it. I saw myself in so many of his descriptions and I knew others would too. My children are becoming warriors for causes instead of ambassadors for love, he said. They are more passionate about political parties than about my kingdom. They will fight harder for their preferred candidate than for the homeless person sleeping outside their church doors. The pain in his voice was unmistakable. They are building walls instead of bridges, choosing sides instead of choosing me. They are so busy defending their version of truth that they forget I am the truth. And the truth is love, not always being right. I felt a weight of conviction settle on my heart because I knew how guilty I was of this myself. Then he stopped and turned to face me. His eyes were full of love, but also deep concern. Jonathan, I am going to show you 7 warnings that I need my people to hear. These aren't predictions about the end times. They are warnings about the state of hearts right now in these final days. The first warning is this: my people are loving their theology more than they love me. He gestured, and I could see churches filled with people who knew every doctrine, every scripture, every theological argument, but their hearts were cold toward him and toward each other. They could defend his word, but they weren't living it. They study love without practicing it. They debate grace without showing it. They memorize verses about forgiveness while holding grudges against other believers. They have turned my simple message, to love God and love others, into complex systems that exclude rather than include. The sadness in his voice was overwhelming. The second warning: my people are seeking signs and wonders more than they're seeking me. As he spoke, I saw crowds chasing supernatural experiences, but their hearts were empty of true relationship with him. They wanted his power without his presence, his gifts without his character. They would travel across the country for a healing service, yet not cross the street to help their neighbor. They prayed for miracles while ignoring the real miracle of transformation he wanted to work in their own hearts. They wanted to be amazed by him, but they did not want to be changed by him. The third warning was perhaps the most heartbreaking. My people are choosing comfort over calling. He showed me believers who had built safe, comfortable lives, insulated from the pain around them. They had turned his gospel into a personal improvement plan rather than a mission to transform the world. They prayed for their own blessings while ignoring the suffering of others. They built bigger churches while the homeless camped outside their doors. They spent more on sound systems than on feeding the hungry. They had made his kingdom about themselves, rather than about the world he came to save. The fourth warning: my people are more divided than the world I called them to unite. The pain in his voice was so intense that I began to cry. They had allowed politics, race, economics, and denominational differences to erect walls higher than those separating believers and non-believers. Republicans and Democrats, both claiming his name, refused to worship together. Rich and poor believers attended separate churches, ignoring each other's struggles. Denominations spent more energy defending their distinctives than proclaiming our common faith. I prayed that they would be one as we are one, but they chose division instead. The fifth warning concerned priorities: my people are building kingdoms instead of seeking my kingdom. He showed me ministries focused more on their own success, platforms, and legacy than on his glory. They were using his name to build their brands rather than using their influence to expand his kingdom. They measured success by numbers rather than transformed lives. They competed with other ministries instead of collaborating. They sought their own glory while claiming to seek his. In his kingdom, the greatest is the servant of all, not the one with the largest following. The sixth warning: my people are preparing for the wrong things. His voice grew more urgent. They were stockpiling for physical tribulation while their hearts were unprepared for spiritual testing. They worried about economic collapse but ignored the collapse of love in their own hearts. They prepared bunkers but not their hearts. They studied prophecy timelines while neglecting the timeline of their own spiritual growth. They wanted to survive the end times but were failing to thrive in the present. They're so focused on future events that they're missing the opportunities to love in the present. And then came the seventh warning, the one that grieves him the most. My people are waiting for me to return while living as if I am not already with them. He looked at me with an intensity that felt like he was seeing directly into my heart. They've turned my second coming into an escape route instead of motivation for faithful living. They expect me to repair the world instead of becoming my hands and feet to help heal it. They wait for me to bring justice instead of acting as people who pursue justice. They wait for my kingdom to arrive instead of advancing it right now. They've forgotten that I never left. I have always been with them. Then Jesus did something unexpected. He sat on a stone bench and motioned for me to sit beside him. Jonathan, I know this feels heavy. I know these warnings are difficult to hear. But I'm not giving them to condemn my people. I'm giving them because I love them too much to let them drift away from my heart. The truth is, I'm not concerned about the Antichrist, the tribulation, or end-time scenarios that cause my people fear. I've already overcome all of that. What concerns me is that when I return, I may find a church that looks nothing like the bride I gave my life for. I died to form a people defined by love, unity, compassion, humility, and service. But if I return today, would I find those qualities in my church? Or would I find people more recognized for what they oppose instead of what they support? More identified with their political preferences than their devotion to me? Here's what I need you to understand, and what I need you to help others understand. The final days are not about surviving end-time events. The final days are about showing that my love is stronger than the world's hatred, and my unity is greater than the world's division. They are about proving my kingdom is different from this world by living according to kingdom values right now. They're about showing that my message changes hearts, heals relationships, removes barriers, and brings hope where hope is fading. His voice grew steady and full of purpose. I need my people to stop arguing about pre-tribulation versus post-tribulation and start focusing on how to love people who are experiencing tribulation. I need them to stop debating the rapture and start living in a way that shows their lives have already been transformed. I need them to stop predicting my return and begin preparing hearts for my return. Because here's the truth that will surprise many. When I return, I am not coming back for a church that simply waited for me. I am returning for a church that worked with me. I'm not coming for people who hid from the world but for people who helped heal the world. The bride I am returning for will look like me, overflowing with love for the unloved, hope for the hopeless, healing for the hurting, and good news for the poor. She's a bride devoted to my Father's work, not hiding away waiting for the wedding day. Then he stood up and began walking again, but now his voice carried a contagious joy, an excitement that lifted the spirit. But Jonathan, here's what gives me hope. Here's what encourages my heart. There are believers who are getting this right. There are churches showing my love in action. I see pastors choosing unity over division, love over politics, service over personal success. I see believers building bridges instead of walls, seeking understanding rather than just being right. I see people who care more about my reputation than their own. I see churches feeding the hungry, housing the homeless, caring for the sick, visiting prisoners. I see believers adopting orphans, welcoming refugees, standing with the oppressed. I see people truly living the gospel they profess to believe. I see young believers on fire for love, not gifts, and older believers passing down faith, not just tradition. I see families putting my kingdom above comfort. I see congregations worshiping together despite differences. These are the ones who understand that the final days aren't about escape. They're about engagement. They're not about survival. They're about service. They're not about being right. They're about being love. They're not building their own kingdom. They're advancing mine. This is my promise to them. When they live this way, love this way, serve this way, they're already experiencing heaven on earth. They don't need to wait for my return to taste my kingdom. They're living it now. But here's what I need you to tell those who aren't living this way yet. There's still time. My heart is not to condemn, but to call them back to their first love. I am not angry. I am heartbroken that they're missing the joy of living in my love now. Then Jesus looked directly at me and said, Jonathan, I've given you a platform not just to portray me but to point people to me. Not just to act like me but to help others learn to live like me. This message is for you too. You've seen how easy it is to get caught up in the success, the recognition, the platform. But I'm calling you higher. Use every opportunity to point people back to the simplicity of my love, to the purity of my gospel. When people see you, I want them to think about their relationship with me, not your performance. When they hear you, I want them to hear my heart for them. When they watch your life, I want them to see what it looks like to follow me authentically. This warning isn't meant to create fear, it's meant to create urgency. Not panic, but urgent love, urgent compassion, urgent unity, urgent service. I am coming back soon and I want my bride ready, not just doctrinally but practically, not just theologically but relationally. The question isn't whether they know about my return. The question is whether they're living in a way that proves they truly want me to return. Are they living lives that show they can't wait to see me, or lives that suggest they're unsure they want to be with me forever? Then he asked me a question that pierced my heart. Jonathan, if I return today, would I find you genuinely representing my heart? Would I see you loving well, serving others, building unity? Or would I see you so focused on your career that you've drifted from your calling? I paused because the honest answer wasn't simple. I realized that even while portraying Jesus professionally, I could still slip away from actually living like him. Success in ministry doesn't automatically equal faithfulness in relationship. A platform doesn't guarantee a passion for his heart. Lord, I said, I want to be faithful. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. But I need your help. Keep my heart soft toward you and toward others. Help me stay centered on what truly matters." His smile was warm, full of love and understanding. "Jonathan, that's the heart I'm looking for. Not perfection, but a desire for righteousness. Not having everything figured out, but a willingness to keep growing. Not being better than others, but becoming better than you were yesterday." This is what he wants all his people to understand. He isn't looking for perfect followers, he's looking for faithful ones. He's not seeking people who never fail, he's seeking those who rise again when they fall. He's not asking for people with every answer, he wants people who keep asking the right questions. As our conversation drew toward its end, Jesus looked at me with such tenderness and said, "Jonathan, I need you to know something. I'm not angry with my church. I'm not disappointed in my people. I'm heartbroken for them because they're missing so much joy, peace and purpose by focusing on the wrong things. When I gave my commandments, it wasn't to burden them. It was to bless them. When I called them to love, it wasn't to restrict them, it was to free them. When I asked them to serve others, it wasn't to make life miserable. It was to give them the deepest satisfaction their hearts could ever experience. The life I call them to is not a life of duty, it is a life of delight. It's not about obligation, it's about opportunity. It's not about what they have to do, it's about what they get to do. They get to be my hands and feet in the world. They get to be part of the greatest story ever told. But many have forgotten the joy of their salvation. They've forgotten the privilege of their calling. They've forgotten the honor of representing me to a world in desperate need of genuine love and action." The sadness in his voice returned, but it was balanced with hope. "That's why I need voices like yours, Jonathan. I need people who can remind others of the beauty of following me, the joy of serving, the peace that comes from living in my love. I need them to remember that being a Christian isn't about perfection. It's about being forgiven and learning to forgive. I need them to remember that my yoke is easy and my burden is light, not because there's no work, but because when they work alongside me, even difficult tasks become expressions of love instead of duties." His tone grew stronger, more passionate. "When they love their enemies, they're not just following a command, they're finding freedom from hatred. When they serve the poor, they're not merely helping others, they're discovering the joy of being part of something greater than themselves. When they forgive those who have hurt them, they're not just obeying, they're receiving healing from bitterness. When they choose unity over division, they're not simply being kind, they're entering into the oneness between the Father and me." As he spoke, something shifted in my heart. The heaviness I felt about the church turned into hope. Not unrealistic hope, but confidence rooted in who Jesus is and what he can accomplish in human hearts. "You see, Jonathan, my warnings aren't only about what's wrong, they're about what's possible. Every warning is an invitation to something better. Every conviction is a call to transformation. Every challenge is an opportunity for growth. I don't reveal problems to discourage my people, I reveal them to redirect them. And here's what gives me great hope. My people have my spirit living within them. They have access to my power. They have the capacity for supernatural love, supernatural unity, and supernatural transformation. They simply need to remember who they are and what they can do through me. When they stop trying to live the Christian life through their own strength and begin living it through mine, everything shifts. When they stop trying to love difficult people with human effort and start loving them with my love, it becomes achievable. When they stop serving others out of obligation and start serving out of joy, it becomes fulfilling. This is why I'm not concerned about the future, Jonathan. This is why I'm not troubled about end times events, tribulation, or persecution. I have already overcome all of it. What matters to me is seeing my people discover the abundant life I sacrificed myself to give them, right now, in the middle of whatever they're facing. I want them to stop waiting for heaven to experience my love and instead experience it so deeply now that heaven becomes simply the continuation of what they already know. I want them to stop preparing for my return and start living as though I never left. Because the truth is, I haven't left. I'm with them in every conversation, every choice, every difficulty, every opportunity. I'm not distant or watching from afar. I'm right beside them, wanting to help them love well, serve others sincerely, and reflect my heart to a world that desperately needs it. When they truly understand this, when they genuinely believe I am always with them, everything changes. They stop feeling alone in their struggles. They stop feeling crushed by the problems around them. They stop believing they are unqualified for the work I've given them. They recognize they're not working for me but working with me. And when they work with me, anything is possible. Enemies can become friends. Broken relationships can be restored. Divided churches can find unity. Self-focused hearts can become servant-hearted. Fearful people can become courageous. This is the transformation I continue to bring into the world through my people. Then Jesus stood and I knew our time was almost over. He placed his hands on my shoulders and looked directly into my eyes. Jonathan, I'm trusting you with this message, not because you're perfect but because you're willing. I'm sending you not because you know everything but because you're seeking the right things. When you share this with others, don't give it as condemnation. Offer it as an invitation. Don't center it on judgment. Center it on hope. Don't focus on what's wrong with my church. Focus on what becomes possible when my people remember who they are and who they belong to. As he spoke, something shifted in my heart. The heaviness I felt about the church turned into hope. Not unrealistic hope, but confidence rooted in who Jesus is and what he can accomplish in human hearts. You see, Jonathan, my warnings aren't only about what's wrong, they're about what's possible. Every warning is an invitation to something better. Every conviction is a call to transformation. Every challenge is an opportunity for growth. I don't reveal problems to discourage my people. I reveal them to redirect them. And here's what gives me great hope. My people have my spirit living within them. They have access to my power. They have the capacity for supernatural love, supernatural unity, and supernatural transformation. They simply need to remember who they are and what they can do through me. When they stop trying to live the Christian life through their own strength and begin living it through mine, everything shifts. When they stop trying to love difficult people with human effort and start loving them with my love, it becomes achievable. When they stop serving others out of obligation and start serving out of joy, it becomes fulfilling. This is why I'm not concerned about the future, Jonathan. This is why I'm not troubled about end times events, tribulation, or persecution. I have already overcome all of it. What matters to me is seeing my people discover the abundant life I sacrificed myself to give them, right now, in the middle of whatever they're facing. I want them to stop waiting for heaven to experience my love and instead experience it so deeply now that heaven becomes simply the continuation of what they already know. I want them to stop preparing for my return and start living as though I never left. Because the truth is, I haven't left. I'm with them in every conversation, every choice, every difficulty, every opportunity. I'm not distant or watching from afar. I'm right beside them, wanting to help them love well, serve others sincerely, and reflect my heart to a world that desperately needs it. When they truly understand this, when they genuinely believe I am always with them, everything changes. They stop feeling alone in their struggles. They stop feeling crushed by the problems around them. They stop believing they are unqualified for the work I've given them. They recognize they're not working for me but working with me. And when they work with me, anything is possible. Enemies can become friends. Broken relationships can be restored. Divided churches can find unity. Self-focused hearts can become servant-hearted. Fearful people can become courageous. This is the transformation I continue to bring into the world through my people. Then Jesus stood and I knew our time was almost over. He placed his hands on my shoulders and looked directly into my eyes. Jonathan, I'm trusting you with this message, not because you're perfect but because you're willing. I'm sending you not because you know everything but because you're seeking the right things. When you share this with others, don't give it as condemnation. Offer it as an invitation. Don't center it on judgment. Center it on hope. Don't focus on what's wrong with my church. Focus on what becomes possible when my people remember who they are and who they belong to.